Hello everyone, and welcome to the Farmers Supply Association Agri Report. I'm Randy Klepechka, agronomist with Farmers Supply Association. We're taping this program. It's May the 30th. This spring's getting by us pretty quick, but we're taping on May the 30th. The overall crop situation is still pretty good. You know, we got off to a phenomenal start, and I think my last program was probably in mid-April or something like that. We got off to just a phenomenal start, one of the better rice planting starts I can ever remember. And then things have kind of, gotten a little more sporadic since then. Since about the, 15th or 20th of April, we've had, a lot of wet periods mixed in. We've had enough dry spells to get stuff done, but it's really slowed down. We've got most of our rice planted. Soybean situation is, a little later than we would have liked as far as planting. We got off to a good start and got some really beautiful beans that are already blooming out there right now, but still a lot of beans, that haven't been planted yet. We're getting at it and getting it, done a little bit at a time. So, we're not bad off on soybeans by any stretch, but we would like to would have gotten, a lot more done, I think, in April than we did. But overall, I'm okay with where we're at right now with the crop in our area. Certainly other areas of the state. I grew up around Slovak, and they've just been wet, and then they got bombarded with baseball-sized hail last week. So, there are a lot of areas that are a lot worse off than we are. But I'll take where we're at right now in much of the farmer supply area, and certainly think we've got the potential to have a pretty good crop. What I'm going to talk about most of today's program, and typical for this time of year, I like to talk about the rice situation. So I'm going to give a rice update and just talk about where we're at with our rice crop, some of the things that have been done, some of the things we need to think about getting done over the next few weeks, and just kind of update the situation on that. The pre-flood nitrogen is still ongoing. Our pre-flood nitrogen, which is such a big thing as far as yield potential goes, we like to get that nitrogen out on dry ground and get it flooded up and keep it pretty stable and get good use of that. But pre-flood nitrogen started on the 10th of May. This particular field we're in right now, it got its pre-flood nitrogen on the 14th of May. So really, on the front end of that nitrogen situation, and so I think we're in really good shape right here. This particular field is Rice Tech 7303. That's a conventional hybrid from Rice Tech, and certainly all the Rice Tech hybrids, have really good yield potential, and we hope this one will come through for us as well. As far as the weed control out here, and you can see it's just beautifully clean out here. What we did is, or the farmer did, was applied command pre, behind the drill, as the vast majority do. Had one overlapped residual out here in this field. We put Prowl and Bolero. So, that's all it's had weed control wise. Maybe, we've done some spotting on some nut grass, not a lot of whole fields, just some spotting of nut grass. But overall, the weed control is very economical and very good out here with that command followed by Prowl Bolero, Bolero, Prowl Bolero. On some other fields on this farm, they did Facet Prowl. So, where there's a flat sedge history, they went Bolero Prowl. Where there's not a flat sedge history, Facet and Prowl has been the plan. And all the fields look really good with just those combinations. About 2 to 3 weeks apart, we got the rains to get them activated, and just basically just some spot and yellow nut sedge applications after that. So it really looks good. So again, back to pre-flood nitrogen. This field in particular here got its pre-flood nitrogen on the 14th on this particular farm, 2,100 acres. They got all of their pre-flood nitrogen out between the 10th of May and the 17th of May. So outstanding timing, got them flooded up timely. And they pretty much all look like this with just some, good color, good nitrogen use, and again, good weed control out here. For those that still haven't got their pre-flood nitrogen out, it's really time, especially on that earlier planted stuff, to get it out there. The DD50 has a final recommended time listed on it for getting your pre-flood nitrogen out. And after that last date, the yield starts going down. And after a few days, I think that, starts sharply going down. So it's really critical for yield potential to get that nitrogen out by that final date or within a few days of that final date, and hopefully get it out on dry ground and get it incorporated properly. If you get to that last date and it's wet and it looks like it's going to stay wet, you can put it out on mud, or you can just, get your flood out there and spoon feed it, maybe 4 applications of 100 pounds, 5 to 7 days apart. will get close to what this pre-flood on dry ground will get. It's not going to get you right there, but it's going to take a little bit more nitrogen if you do it that way. And it's just not the way we want to do it, but sometimes you get in situations where the weather tells you you've got to do it that way. But hopefully we can still continue to get everything that's still left on dry ground and get it incorporated properly, and and set ourselves up for good yield potential. So again, great reason to run DD50s. I know a lot of people don't do that anymore like they used to, but that one date I think is really important. It tells you that last date that you need to get your nitrogen out there before you starting losing yield quite a bit. So again, I'd encourage you to do that in the future. This particular farm, they do that, and they really shoot for that early end of that window to get the pre-flood nitrogen out. They don't look at that last date, they look at that first date. When can I get started and get that rice fertilized and flooded? And you see they're very successful with this because about all their fields look just like this. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at with the early nitrogen. It's going to be time for mid-season nitrogen here pretty quick. Of course, this is a hybrid, and the hybrids we try to wait till the boot stage before we put any more nitrogen out. Now sometimes they may yellow up, and you may need to put a little bit out there. If it starts really getting deficient looking and everything, you might want to put one out there, but if it looks halfway normal, we normally try to just wait till the boot stage. On our conventional varieties, we use what we call the 4-week rule. You want to wait at least 4 weeks after you put that pre-flood nitrogen out on your conventional varieties before you put that mid-season out there. Sometimes you can even wait a little longer than that. If it's got good color, I'd sometimes even tempted to wait a little bit longer than that, but wait at least 4 weeks. Let that early nitrogen get in the plant. If you put it out there too early, it's still using that pre-flood nitrogen, and it might not get the efficient use of what you're putting out there at that time because it's got plenty at that time. So back when I was a county agent, we used to not have that research-based information. Now we do, and we know you can wait, like I said, at least 4 weeks. Sometimes maybe even bump that closer to 5 if it's still looking pretty good before you put that nitrogen out there. Of course, you do want at least green ring at that point, but normally if you're waiting 4 weeks, you're going to be at green ring or later. So let's remember that 4-week rule on our conventional varieties, and of course the late boot stage on the hybrids. Of course, this time of year, we're still wanting to clean up some weeds. Again, the weed control on those people like this that got their residuals out there early, got them incorporated, they're really in outstanding shape. Don't have much to worry about at this time. Of course, there could be some stuff come through later, but I think a lot of these will be just fine. So let's talk about some weeds individually that we may see, this time of year or a little bit later, and the best, best method to try to attack those, the best herbicides to use. Of course, number one is usually barnyard grass. Rice Star is usually my first go-to. Like good moisture on the soil when you use Rice Star, but again, if you're 4-leaf grass, maybe even early tillering grass, Rice Star is going to be one of your first go-to choices. Again, we like the ground to have really good moisture. They used to say if you could use a ground rig, it was too dry, but that's as long as you've got good moisture and it's growing well, I think you can use Rice Star and get effective. Good thing about Rice Star, you can use it next to soybeans and other rice crops without any problem, which it can be an issue with some other herbicides. The next one that I go to is usually Regiment, and Regiment's one of those that can be a problem. If you've got soybeans nearby, that can be a problem. And sometimes it's just difficult, impossible to get Regiment out. And if you can't, that can be an issue, and it is an issue in a lot of fields. But Regiment's my second choice, or it's right there with Rice Star, but usually it's my second alternative, after that point. We want at least 3-leaf rice for Regiment to be used. And again, you got to watch near soybean fields because you're not going to be able to get it put out a lot of times. And of course, it's very damaging to soybeans. Once we get flooded, some of the salvage situations we can use that the university recommends is either a Rice Star Regiment combination, or if it's clear field or full page, we can go with a Rice Star and a Beyond or postscript application in those situations. So that's some of your salvage situations. Broadleaf signal grass, I love Facet on broadleaf signal grass. It'll just kind of sit on it and eventually wither away. So I love Facet on broadleaf signal grass. Other options there would be Rice Star and Clincher. Springle top usually once it gets any size at all, sometimes maybe if it's small you can get it with some propanil or especially rice bowl, but once it gets any size we're really looking at Rice Stars being about your only alternative, so keep that in mind for Springle top. Our annual sedges, which we've talked more about the last couple of years, are becoming more and more of a problem. This particular field has an annual sedge problem, flat sedge, and I think maybe some white margin sedge as well problem. But we put the bolero out here pre, and it seems to be doing a very good job of keeping that flat sedge in check. Identifying the annual sedges, rice flat sedge, when it comes up, if you rub your hand over those fine leaves or kind of crush them up in your fingers, it'll have a smell, kind of like I think some people call it cedar-like smell. That's your surest way of identifying the rice flat sedge. White margin sedge is the other one. That's an annual sedge that we think about. White margin sedge has a couple of identifying characteristics. One of them, it's got to get a little size on it before you can identify that, and that's the back side of that leaf will be kind of a silver look with a very deep green mid vein. That's your white margin sedge. Also, another way, if you'll pull it up, the root system will be kind of reddish usually with the white margin sedge. So a couple of identifying characteristics for white margin sedge versus that smell that you get when you crush the leaves up with the rice flat sedge. As far as control of those two sedges, loins, kind of number one as far as control, but a lot of times you can't get loin out if you got soybeans nearby, especially in certain situations. So sometimes loin can't be used, and if it can't, then probably the next choice would be bassagran. Bassagran can be very effective on it as well, but remember loint and also bassagran is good choices for those sedges. For white margin sedge, propanil is just not very good on it. I think it's rated to 5. Now for rice flat sedge, the propanils, and especially something like a rice bowl, can be very effective on that, so remember that. I just want to finish up talking about one more weed situation. That's the black-seeded weeds, hemp sesbania or coffee bean, northern joint vetch or indigo, and morning glory. There's a bunch of things you can use on the hemp sesbania and the morning glory, so I'm not going to go into that. I was starting to list those out, and there were just so many things that I just forgot about that. But the northern joint vetch or the indigo, that's a biggie right there, and we see those things come through in a lot of fields, especially when I get over in Poinsett County. I really run into a lot of it over there, and they can come through late, and you're kind of throw your hands up sometimes because it's hard to find a good option. Probably one of the best things is grandstand, or especially a grandstand propanil mix. I have trouble getting that out sometimes over in that area, but a lot of times they'll put grandstand but not the mix. So, but then that's probably your best choice for the northern joint vetch or indigo, and you got to get that out before that inner node gets to 1/2 inch. Once you get past 1/2 inch, you really don't have a lot of options for the indigo. So that's just where we're at right now with the rice crop, trying to finish up getting fertilized, getting flooded, and think about some of those last minute and those escaped weed situations. So that's where we're at right now, and we'll talk to you again later next month, and as we continue to move along with the 2024 crop.